안녕하세요. 반갑습니다, 여러분. 이번 시간에는 11장 심장혈관계통에 대해서 학습하는 시간입니다. 그럼 시작하겠습니다.
대동맥 축착,
coarctation of the aorta, coarctation of the aorta, coarctation of the aorta,
동맥관개존증, 열린동맥관,
patent ductus arteriosus, patent ductus arteriosus, patent ductus arteriosus,
중격결손,
septal defect, septal defect, septal defect,
심방중격결손,
atrioseptal defect, atrioseptal defect, atrioseptal defect,
심실중격결손,
ventricular septal defect, ventricular septal defect, ventricular septal defect,
인공심폐기,
heart lung machine, heart lung machine, heart lung machine,
팔로네징후,
tetralogy of Fallot, tetralogy of Fallot, tetralogy of Fallot,
폐동맥협착,
pulmonary artery stenosis, pulmonary artery stenosis, pulmonary artery stenosis,
대동맥우향,
shift of the aorta to the right, shift of the aorta to the right, shift of the aorta to the right,
우심실비대,
hypertrophy of the right ventricle, hypertrophy of the right ventricle, hypertrophy of the right ventricle,
대혈관전이,
transposition of great arteries, transposition of great arteries, transposition of great arteries,
우혈심부전,
congestive heart failure, congestive heart failure, congestive heart failure,
폐부종,
pulmonary edema, pulmonary edema, pulmonary edema,
안지오텐신 전환효소,
angiotensin-converting enzyme, angiotensin-converting enzyme, angiotensin-converting enzyme,
베타 수용체저 해제,
beta blocker, beta blocker, beta blocker,
스피로놀락톤,
spironolactone, spironolactone, spironolactone,
디곡신,
digoxin, digoxin, digoxin,
좌심실 보조기,
left ventricular assist device, left ventricular assist device, left ventricular assist device,
관상동맥병,
coronary artery disease, coronary artery disease, coronary artery disease,
괴사,
necrosis, necrosis, necrosis,
허혈,
ischemia, ischemia, ischemia,
심근경색증,
myocardial infarction, myocardial infarction, myocardial infarction,
급성심근경색증,
acute myocardial infarction, acute myocardial infarction, acute myocardial infarction,
급성관상동맥증후군,
acute coronary syndromes, acute coronary syndromes, acute coronary syndromes,
불안정협심증,
unstable angina, unstable angina, unstable angina,
니트로글리세린,
nitroglycerin, nitroglycerin, nitroglycerin,
아스피린,
aspirin, aspirin, aspirin,
베타 차단제,
beta blocker, beta blocker, beta blocker,
엔지오텐신 전환효소 억제제,
ACE inhibitor, ACE inhibitor, ACE inhibitor,
칼슘 통로 차단제,
calcium channel blocker, calcium channel blocker, calcium channel blocker,
스타틴,
statin, statin, statin,
심내막염,
endocarditis, endocarditis, endocarditis,
색전,
embolus, embolus, embolus,
일과성 허혈 발작,
transient ischemic attack, transient ischemic attack, transient ischemic attack,
점출혈,
pedachia, pedachia, pedachia,
고혈압 심장질환,
hypertensive heart disease, hypertensive heart disease, hypertensive heart disease,
승모판 탈출,
mitral valve prolapse, mitral valve prolapse, mitral valve prolapse,
승모판 역류,
mitral regurgitation, mitral regurgitation, mitral regurgitation,
쉿소리,
bruit, bruit, bruit,
떨림,
thrill, thrill, thrill,
심장막염,
pericarditis, pericarditis, pericarditis,
심장막 마찰음,
pericardial friction rub, pericardial friction rub, pericardial friction rub,
심장 눌림증,
cardiac tamponade, cardiac tamponade, cardiac tamponade,
류마틱 심장병,
rheumatic heart disease, rheumatic heart disease, rheumatic heart disease,
류마티결,
rheumatic fever, rheumatic fever, rheumatic fever,
승모판 협착증,
mitral stenosis, mitral stenosis, mitral stenosis,
동맥류,
aneurysm, aneurysm, aneurysm,
복부 대동맥류,
abdominal aortic aneurysm, abdominal aortic aneurysm, abdominal aortic aneurysm,
해리성 대동맥류,
dissecting aortic aneurysm, dissecting aortic aneurysm, dissecting aortic aneurysm,
혈관대 동맥류 치료,
endovascular aneurysm repair, endovascular aneurysm repair, endovascular aneurysm repair,
대동맥류,
aortic aneurysm, aortic aneurysm, aortic aneurysm,
마르팡 증후군,
Marfan syndrome, Marfan syndrome, Marfan syndrome,
딸기 동맥류,
berry aneurysm, berry aneurysm, berry aneurysm,
깊은 정맥 혈전증,
deep vein thrombosis, deep vein thrombosis, deep vein thrombosis,
고혈압,
hypertension, hypertension, hypertension,
본태고혈압,
essential hypertension, essential hypertension, essential hypertension,
2차 고혈압,
secondary hypertension, secondary hypertension, secondary hypertension,
말초 동맥 질환,
peripheral arterial disease, peripheral arterial disease, peripheral arterial disease,
간헐절 뚝거림 간헐파행,
intermittent claudication, intermittent claudication, intermittent claudication,
고지혈증,
hyperlipidemia, hyperlipidemia, hyperlipidemia,
혈전 방지기구,
embolic protection device, embolic protection device, embolic protection device,
레이노병,
Raynaud's disease, Raynaud's disease, Raynaud's disease,
정맥류,
varicose vein, varicose vein, varicose vein,
치액치질,
hemorrhoid, hemorrhoid, hemorrhoid,
뇌 나트륨 이뇨 펩티드,
brain natriuretic peptide, brain natriuretic peptide, brain natriuretic peptide,
뇌 나트륨 이뇨 펩티드 검사,
BNP test, BNP test, BNP test,
심장 생물 표지자,
cardiac biomarker, cardiac biomarker, cardiac biomarker,
시반응 담배,
C-reactive protein, C-reactive protein, C-reactive protein,
고감도 시반응 담배,
high sensitive CRP, high sensitive CRP, high sensitive CRP,
지방 검사,
lipid test, lipid test, lipid test,
포화지방,
saturated fat, saturated fat, saturated fat,
불포화지방,
polyunsaturated fat, polyunsaturated fat, polyunsaturated fat,
지질 단백 전기 영동,
lipoprotein electrophoresis, lipoprotein electrophoresis, lipoprotein electrophoresis,
저밀도 지질 단백질,
low density lipoprotein, low density lipoprotein, low density lipoprotein,
고밀도 지질 단백질,
high density lipoprotein, high density lipoprotein, high density lipoprotein,
혈관조 영술,
angiography, angiography, angiography,
조영제,
contrast material, contrast material, contrast material,
전산화 단층 혈관조 영술,
computed tomography angiography, computed tomography angiography, computed tomography angiography,
디지털 감산 혈관조 영술,
digital subtraction angiography, digital subtraction angiography, digital subtraction angiography,
전자선 컴퓨터 단층 촬영,
electron beam computed tomography, electron beam computed tomography, electron beam computed tomography,
도플러 초음파 진단,
Doppler ultrasound studies, Doppler ultrasound studies, Doppler ultrasound studies,
심초음파 검사,
echocardiography, echocardiography, echocardiography,
경식도 심초음파 검사,
transesophageal echocardiography, transesophageal echocardiography, transesophageal echocardiography,
양전자 방출 단층 촬영술,
positron emission tomography scan, positron emission tomography scan, positron emission tomography scan,
테크네툼 세스타미비 스캔,
technetium TC 99 meters sestamibi scan, technetium TC 99 meters sestamibi scan, technetium TC 99 meters sestamibi scan,
탈륨 마이너스 201 스캔,
thallium 201 scan, thallium 201 scan, thallium 201 scan,
심장 자기 공명 영상,
cardiac MRI, cardiac MRI, cardiac MRI,
자기 공명 혈관조 영술,
magnetic resonance angiography, magnetic resonance angiography, magnetic resonance angiography,
가돌리늄,
gadolinium, gadolinium, gadolinium,
심장도 관삽입,
cardiac catheterization, cardiac catheterization, cardiac catheterization,
혈관 내 초음파,
intravascular ultrasound, intravascular ultrasound, intravascular ultrasound,
심전도 검사,
electrocardiography, electrocardiography, electrocardiography,
홀터 모니터 검사,
Holter monitoring, Holter monitoring, Holter monitoring,
부하 검사,
stress test, stress test, stress test,
운동 내성 검사,
exercise tolerance test, exercise tolerance test, exercise tolerance test,
카테터 절제,
catheter ablation, catheter ablation, catheter ablation,
관상 동맥 우회술,
coronary artery bypass grafting, coronary artery bypass grafting, coronary artery bypass grafting,
삽입형 심장율동 전환기,
implantable cardioverter defibrillator, implantable cardioverter defibrillator, implantable cardioverter defibrillator,
자동 삽입형 심장율동 전환기,
automatic implantable cardioverter defibrillator, automatic implantable cardioverter defibrillator, automatic implantable cardioverter defibrillator,
체외순환,
extracorporeal circulation, extracorporeal circulation, extracorporeal circulation,
체외막산소 공급,
extracorporeal membrane oxygenation, extracorporeal membrane oxygenation, extracorporeal membrane oxygenation,
심장 이식,
heart transplantation, heart transplantation, heart transplantation,
경피적 관상 동맥 중재술,
percutaneous coronary intervention, percutaneous coronary intervention, percutaneous coronary intervention,
약물 분출성 스텐트,
drug-eluting stent, drug-eluting stent, drug-eluting stent,
경피경관 관상 동맥 성형,
percutaneous transluminal coronary angioplasty, percutaneous transluminal coronary angioplasty, percutaneous transluminal coronary angioplasty,
혈전용해술,
thrombolytic therapy, thrombolytic therapy, thrombolytic therapy,
경피적 대동맥 판막 치환,
transcatheter aortic valve replacement, transcatheter aortic valve replacement, transcatheter aortic valve replacement,
다발 갈래 차단,
bundle branch block, bundle branch block, bundle branch block,
혈압,
blood pressure, blood pressure, blood pressure,
심폐소생술,
cardiopulmonary resuscitation, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, cardiopulmonary resuscitation,
왼심실비대,
left ventricular hypertrophy, left ventricular hypertrophy, left ventricular hypertrophy,
ST 분절 비상승 심근경색,
Non-ST elevation myocardial infarction. Non-ST elevation myocardial infarction. Non-ST elevation myocardial infarction.
급성심장사,
Sudden cardiac death. Sudden cardiac death. Sudden cardiac death.
숨참,
Shortness of breath. Shortness of breath. Shortness of breath.
조직 플라스미노젠 활성인자,
Tissue type plasminogen activator. Tissue type plasminogen activator. Tissue type plasminogen activator.
월프 마이너스 파킨슨 마이너스 화이트 증후군,
Wolff Parkinson White syndrome. Wolff Parkinson White syndrome. Wolff Parkinson White syndrome.